Good morning, everyone. My name is Crystal. If it is your first time, let us know in the comments with some emojis. Give us a hello, a little wave, a smiley face. If you are not watching from Miami, or if you're in Miami, where are you watching from? Hialeah, Miami Gardens, Kendall, Coral Gables. If you're watching from out of Miami, let us know who you're watching with and where you're watching from. We love to give you a shout out in the comments. If it's your third or fourth or maybe fifth time, ninth, how many times, like, you've been doing this, like 9 weeks? You know what to do. Share on the bottom of this video. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe or hit the bell button. This is a great way to stay connected and connect others, like your friends and your family. Speaking of connected, if you follow us on social media, specifically Instagram, we posted a story this week to ask you guys to share what you're doing during this quarantine. We realized that a lot of people are bored and they've run out of things to do, so we thought it'd be cool to share with you some things people have been doing. So a lot of people are taking it back to the good old days when you're 14 and they're playing some Xbox. I heard some other people are doing things like going on house party and Zoom and doing virtual games. Apparently there's a lot of virtual games out there to play and connect with your friends. And then lastly, people are working at home, but they're also working out at home to get that summer bod whenever we get out of here. And then Steven and I have been using YouTube. We've been watching some hilarious videos. Here's one I want to share with you right now.
Come on, pull that rope.
These kids acting like they pulling a rope across the street. Look at it, they stop the cars, guys. Stop, because they think they pulling a rope across the street. Yeah, to get out and look. What?
Cruz, why don't you eat your vegetables?
Not today. Not today.
Not today. Anyways, you guys stay tuned. I encourage you to watch YouTube, watch our videos, or watch some funny videos. It's a lot of fun over the week. Stay tuned to our Instagram. Follow us. It's Miami_church. If you haven't followed us, do so right now. Go on your phone, pull it out. We post stories, and we also remind you about our 90-day reading plan so you can keep track on what day we're on every day. So before I go, I want to remind you of a few more things. Remember, on Tuesdays, we have neighborhood teams. I encourage you to join one. And we also have prayer at noon on Wednesdays. If you'd like to connect to either one of these, email us at hello@miamichurch.com or comment right now in the comments. Let us know. Send an emoji. Say, hey, I want to be part of a neighborhood team. I will be there Wednesday. And if you have any prayer requests, email us as well at hello@miamichurch.com. Last but not least, Greg will lead us in communion at the end of the message. So grab your bread, your crackers, your juice, any bread, any crackers, any juice will do. All right, without further ado, here's Greg.
All right, thanks, Crystal. Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to see you this morning, and I'm glad we can be connecting here online on all of our platforms. So just encourage you, go ahead and share. Comments, we love to see your comments. As much as we can interact with you, we want to do that. And as always, I like to just keep saying this. We have our prayer team, this wonderful team of volunteers and people who are ready to come alongside of you and pray with you. So you can obviously drop us a comment, drop us a direct message. But hello@miamichurch.com. We are actively monitoring that right now while I'm talking. And so please engage with us. We're here for you. We love you, and we want to support you any way that we can. Now, this week, we sent out a simple survey. It's just 5 questions to really thousands of people on social and through email. And one of the questions, it was just 5 simple questions, but one of the questions said this, and here was the question. It said, these days, like right now, what predominant emotions let me rephrase that. These days, my predominant emotions are, and then you could list as many as you want. So maybe you filled out the survey, maybe you didn't, but I'd be curious right now, as you're watching, as you're listening, what are your predominant emotions? Like, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Maybe drop a few of those in the comments. I'd be curious what they are. What are you feeling right now? Now, as you can imagine, again, we sent this out and blasted this across. As you can imagine, as people began to respond and we began to get the responses, there were some themes. In fact, there were certain words that just started showing up over and over and over again. And I want to share with you some of those words. Here are some of the words that I would say were the most common used to describe how you guys are feeling right now. Here's some of the words on the screen. Frustrated, concerned, overwhelmed, tired, anxious, bored, lonely, stressed, numb, hopeless. It makes sense, right? If you think about these words, it makes sense because we're all experiencing something none of us have experienced before. This is all new. This is all uncertain. And it's been going on now for months, and we don't know when it's going to end, and we don't know what it's going to look like on the other side of whatever end is. Something about this uncertainty, it just stirs the emotions from deep inside of us. Now, a couple of conclusions I draw from this little simple survey we sent out is first thing I would say to you is however you're feeling, you are not alone. If one of these words up here describes how you feel today or how you felt this week, I would say you're not alone because we saw a lot of people say these same words. And so what you're experiencing, what you're feeling is common. The second conclusion that I drew from this conclusion, from this survey, was that it really brings up some questions, some big questions. And I think there's a question that I have to answer and a question that you have to answer. And the question is this, is where is your hope? When we think about this word, hope. I mean, it's 4 letters, but it's a huge word, hope. I mean, this is one thing that you and I cannot live without. We have to have hope. And so where do you find your hope? I mean, in uncertainty, in hard times, when things don't go as planned, when you feel like you're walking around in the dark. I mean, where do you find hope? I want you to think back right now to the hardest time in your life, or maybe the hardest season in your life. Or maybe another way to say that, the lowest point in your life. Think about what was the lowest point in your life, and what did you hold on to? Like, what did you cling on to? Where did you find your hope? Maybe you lost your job, or you've been furloughed, or you're fighting for your business, or you're struggling to pay your employees. Like, where's your hope? Like, maybe you have a family member or a loved one who's sick, and they're just not getting better, and you're praying for healing, but they're not getting any better, and the prognosis is not good. Where do you find hope? Maybe your marriage is struggling, and it seems like the harder you try, the worse your marriage gets. Where's your hope? And some of you are trying to have a baby, and you've been trying, and some of you have been trying for months, even years, and you've tried everything, and you've spent a ton of money, and you've seen all of these specialists, and you've jumped through all of these hoops, and nothing. Where's your hope? You just can't catch a break. Where's your hope? You know, when the waves of life crash against us, in times of unknown and uncertainty, when life just feels like it's dark, what is it that you need? What you need and what I need, we need something to hold on to. What you need and what I need is something to cling to. Another way I would say this is you and I, we need an anchor. We need an anchor, a life anchor. And so may I ask you a question? Maybe this is a little personal. But what is your anchor? Like, what is your life anchor? If I were to ask you, like, what are you holding on to? What are you clinging to? You know, just a few blocks from here where I'm standing this way, actually, is Biscayne Bay. And in Biscayne Bay, there's tons of marinas and sailing clubs. In fact, there's thousands of boats, right? There are thousands of boats in the marinas, in the harbor. And boats have an anchor. And again, this is just a picture illustration, but what's the idea of an anchor? If you're on a boat, right, you throw your anchor, and the anchor goes down to the bottom or to the bed or to the ground below the water, right? And it holds the boat in place. And the idea is to keep the boat from crashing into the shore or the land or crashing into another boat or crashing into anything. And the idea is that the winds are going to come. It's been windy this week. It's been rainy this week, right? And the current keeps coming. The tides keep coming, right? And so the boat is going to move. It's going to shift. It's going to rock. It's going to go back and forth with the wind and with the storm and with the current. But, right, if the anchor is firmly planted in the bottom, if the anchor is firmly secure, the boat will not come loose, will not come unattached. The anchor will hold. And in this letter to the believers in the first century, the author of the book of Hebrews, he used this imagery. Here's what he said. It's in Hebrews chapter 6, verse 19. He's talking to the first century church. He's talking to followers of Jesus. He's talking to us. He says, hey, listen, we have this, and here's our word, hope. We have this hope. We have this hope, what? As an anchor for the soul. And he says the anchor is firm and secure. And what he's saying is, he says, hey, we have this hope. We have hope in God that he can be an anchor for our soul and that he will hold us firm and secure. And what this metaphor is actually teaching us is that no matter how chaotic our world is, no matter how uncertain, no matter how crazy the circumstances of your life or my life get, no matter who disappoints you or who betrays you or leaves you, no matter how bad the economy gets, no matter how disappointing the Dolphins are this upcoming season, if there even is a season, he's saying, listen, there is one thing in this life that you can count on all day long through the darkest night of the soul. In all of the uncertainty, in all of the craziness, there's one thing you can count on. And he says, hey, and that's if you're in a right relationship with God and that you have faith in him, that he is your anchor, and that anchor is going to hold. And so I ask you again, like, what is your hope? What is it that you're banking on? When you feel all of these emotions that we're feeling, when you feel overwhelmed and anxious and stressed and lonely and numb, what's your anchor? What are you holding on to? Are you absolutely sure that God is the anchor for your soul? Have you settled that question? I mean, when you get quiet, when you lay your head on your pillow at night, can you say with total confidence, I'm securely connected to God, and no matter what happens tomorrow, no matter what happens next week, when you lay your head on your pillow at night, can you say with confidence that I have faith in God and I depend on him and I am rock solid sure that no matter what comes my way, I have an anchor, and that anchor is going to hold? You know, if you have this kind of confidence, if you live with this kind of confidence. You actually walk through life differently. It changes how you face a global pandemic. It changes how you respond to life circumstances. It changes how you respond to death when that happens one day. This kind of confidence offers peace. In fact, one of the authors in the first century, one of the church leaders, he put it this way. He said, this is a peace that transcends human understanding. I mean, we're talking about a calmness, an inner peace, a peace that regardless of the circumstances in your life, that you have peace that just doesn't make sense on a human level, on a visible. It doesn't make, how can you have that kind of peace? It transcends, it blows my mind. It's beyond what I can comprehend or understand. Now I want to take just a couple of minutes today, and I want to tell you three stories of three different people who were struck by terrible storms and how each of them survived because their anchor held firm and secure. Story one, it comes straight from the first part of the Bible, which is called the Old Testament. And maybe some of you are familiar with this guy. It's about a guy named Job. And Job, if you read the story, in a matter of a few short days, almost everything important in Job's life is torn away from him. I mean, poachers come in the middle of the night and they steal all his cattle. A terrible storm comes and kills all his sheep. And then, if you can believe this, a force 10 wind comes sweeping across the desert and destroys the house where, get this, all 10 of his children are gathered for a party. And all 10 children are killed that night. And if that's not bad enough, Job develops a skin disease that's so painful that he actually says that he actually takes broken pieces of pottery and he tries to scrape off a layer of skin on his arms and on his legs. And Job is in absolute emotional and physical agony. And his wife, she's a great encouragement. She says, Job, why don't you just curse God and die? But Job, in the midst of all of this pain and agony and uncertainty, Job has a different response. He says, God gave me all this stuff, and he has the right to take it away. Blessed be the name of God. In fact, this is how it's recorded that he writes. He says, God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of God. Now, Job here, he's not making light of his losses. He's not in a state of denial. In fact, he's in agony. But if you use the metaphor of the anchor, Job is basically saying, yes, this is a terrible, terrible storm. It's worse than anything I could have ever imagined. I'm in more pain and more agony than I could ever comprehend. But you know what? I think my anchor is going to hold despite all of that. I'm trusting that my anchor is going to hold. I don't believe God has set me adrift. I don't believe the world is out of control. So I'm going to trust my anchor. And sure enough, if you read the entire story, Job's anchor did hold. And near the end of the book that bears his name, God rewards Job for his remarkable faith. And I could just imagine around holiday time every year that Job would just gather all his kids and he would gather all his grandkids and he would just say, come on guys, hey, before we open the gifts, hey, before we carve the turkey, come on in guys, just come on in. It's story time with Grandpa Job. And you could just say, hey guys, I just want to tell you about a storm that came in my life. And he tells them about the cattle and the sheep and he tells them about the 10 kids that lost their lives. And then you could just see him say, but I want to tell you. Let me tell you what got me through the storm. Let me tell you about my anchor. Let me tell you about my faith in God and how it held. And I could just imagine Job saying to all these kids and grandkids, now listen, from my experience, from what I learned in life, you need an anchor in your life. And you need one that's going to hold through all of the storms, no matter what comes your way. And kids, grandkids, listen up. God is available to be that anchor for you. And so kids, grandkids, trust God as the anchor for your soul. If Job were standing here today, I think he would look right at you and look right at me and say, hey, let me ask you a question. And I'm sorry if it's a little personal, but this is really important. Are you sure? Have you declared? Do you walk around with confidence? Do you lay your head on your pillow at night with confidence? Do you know that God is the anchor for your soul? Story number 2. Again, this is another guy that comes from the first half of the Bible called the Old Testament. And this guy's story is a bit different. Job seemed to have one huge storm event, but from everything we can tell from his story, once the storm event passed, the rest of his life was rather peaceful. But this guy, his life was one unrelenting storm after another. Jeremiah, from the day he declared that he was going to be a spokesman for God, he was battered by storm after storm after storm, year after year after year. And because Jeremiah stood for God, and because Jeremiah said words to people from God that they didn't want to hear, he was arrested. He was publicly ridiculed. His life was threatened. In fact, at one point he was thrown into a deep cistern and left to die. And this type of response lasted his entire adult life. What's interesting is near the end of his life, he writes these words. This is what he writes from his heart. It's in Lamentations 3. He says this: the steadfast love of the Lord, of God, it never ceases. God's mercies never come to an end. They are, don't miss this, new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And when you see the context of his life and you see what he wrote, it's like Jeremiah is saying, hey, even though the circumstances of my life were never easy, in fact, they were lousy, he says, I realized that my anchor still held. I was never adrift. I was never without hope. Things were never completely out of control. I never felt totally abandoned or alone. In fact, Jeremiah says that every single morning, that every day of his very stormy life, that God sent him a little whisper of hope, new mercies, fresh love, fresh grace. Just little reminders, little whispers every day that, hey, Jeremiah, I'm with you, I'm for you. And so at the end of his very difficult life, Jeremiah is able to say, I am so glad that God was my anchor and that the anchor held. See, I believe if Jeremiah were here today and he could walk up here and look at you and look at me, he would ask you, he says, hey, I just got to ask you a question. I'm sorry if it's too personal, but is God your anchor? I mean, do you have faith to believe that your anchor will hold no matter what comes your way? Story 3. It was the spring of 2008. I'll never forget this. My wife and I were living in Chicago, and on Saturday, May the 31st, 2008, a family in our church got a phone call that every parent dreads. Their 19-year-old daughter had been involved in a car accident, a terrible automobile accident, and they needed to get to the hospital right away. So they rushed to the hospital, and when they arrived at the hospital and they saw the injuries that their 19-year-old daughter had sustained, they knew it was going to take an absolute miracle for her to live. And so they started calling and texting hundreds of people from our church. And they began to invite people to pray fervently that God would do a miracle, that he would heal this precious daughter. But the miracle never came. This precious 19-year-old daughter, she died that day. And it's personal for me because I had a relationship with the father who had invested in me as a leadership coach and had spent time and poured into me as a young leader, trying to help me become better, to be a better person and a husband and a follower of Jesus and a leader. And this precious 19-year-old girl, she had actually been a volunteer in the ministry that I led. And so as I tried to lead the ministry, she worked alongside of me and helped. And I'll never forget at the funeral, the family is on the front row and just devastated. I mean, is there anything worse for parents than to lose a child? I don't think so. And they're just devastated. And the pastor leading the funeral, in the midst of just overwhelming agony and grief in the room, he turned to this passage in Hebrews 6:19. And I'll never forget this. He said, listen up, family. You have a hope. And he said, death is not going to get the final say here. You have this hope, and it's an anchor for your soul. And you have the promise of heaven. And the promise is that one day you will be reunited with your beautiful daughter. And your anchor is going to hold. And he said, your anchor is going to hold. That's who our God is. Several years later, the mom, she wrote a book. The book is called Colors of Goodbye, a memoir of holding on, of letting go, of reclaiming joy in the wake of loss. And as soon as the book came out, I got a copy, and I'll never forget. It's still emotional just even talking about the book. I remember reading the book, and I had the book in one hand and a box of Kleenex in the other hand. And I just remember just crying and weeping as I read this book. But here's what she says. As much as this was a profound loss, and there was grief and agony that this precious family experienced, yet through it all, they kept their hands in God's hand. And they continue to serve in their church. They continue to live on fully for God. And if you ask any member of the family if their anchor held, they'll look you in the eyes, and their eyes will well up with tears. But I think they'll say, hey, as horrible as this is, as much pain, as much grief, and as much agony as we still feel all these years later, we have this hope as an anchor for our souls, and it held, and it's firm and secure. And I believe if she could walk into this room right now and stare and look at you and look at me, she said, hey, I just got to ask you a question. And I'm sorry if it's too personal, but this is too important. We can't pretend anymore. Life's too short. Life's too unknown. We just don't know. And I believe she would look at you and she'd say, hey, I just got to ask you a question. What are you holding on to? What is your hope? What are you banking on? What is your life anchor? Do you have a hope? Do you have an anchor that is firm and secure for your soul? Remember when I was a kid, similar to many of you, grew up in a church experience, and I remember we would sing these old hymns. And there was this one particular hymn from the 1800s that we would sing, and I remember liking the song because it was a kind of a catchy tune, and there was this kind of repeat part to it. But it really didn't mean anything to me. It was just a song. It was just kind of went through the motions. This is what we did in the hour on Sunday morning. This is what we're supposed to do. Until I experienced deep pain. Until I went through the storm. See, when I held my dead baby in my arms, this song took on a completely different meaning. It became personal. Some of you, maybe you're familiar with this song. Here's how it's written right. He says this. He says, when peace like a river attendeth my way. He says, hey, there's going to be times, there's going to be seasons in your life when everything's going great, when life is good. He says there's going to be seasons where there's no pain and there's no complications. It's peace like a river, just going to flow. Then the next line says this, when sorrows like sea billows, like waves roll. He says, when the waves of disappointment and loss and fear and unmet state, when these waves crash on you, when you experience these emotions like that we saw in this survey this week, we're overwhelmed and we're tired and we're anxious and we're lonely and we're stressed. And when these waves just keep crashing into you, he says, when the waves like sea billows roll over and over in your life, he said this. He says, whatever my lot, he says, whatever the circumstances in my life, whatever happens today, whatever happens tomorrow, whatever happens next week, whatever happens, God has taught me to say, and here's the big line, it is well with my soul. Soul, the core, the core of you, the inner part of you, it is well with my soul. This is another way of saying, in the worst of storms, in the worst of uncertainty, as dark as it may get, I have an anchor, and that anchor is going to hold. So I want to ask you one last time. Are you absolutely sure that you have an anchor for your soul? Friends, this is the most important thing in life. Are you absolutely sure that you have an anchor for your soul? I mean, do I need to remind you that substitute anchors don't have much holding power? You know this. Money makes a lousy anchor. I mean, we're one recession or one bad investment, and boom, you're adrift and you're alone, and you're feeling foolish for having put your trust in money. Money's a lousy anchor. Popularity, fame, lousy anchor, so fleeting. You get your 15 minutes, and then it's gone and you're adrift. Your career. You may love your job. Many of us have fulfilling careers that we feel called to, but lousy anchor. You're one merger, one buyout, one global pandemic, one pink slip away from being set adrift. Your new boyfriend, your new girlfriend, a blessing from God, maybe, and that's cool, but don't make them your anchor, your life anchor. I mean, even family members, those that we hold so dearly, those that we love, they should not be trusted as anchors for the soul. Their lives are fragile. Their days are numbered, and they were never designed by God to be an anchor for your soul. I think we know in our heart of hearts that only God can be an anchor that will hold, an anchor for the soul. Do you need that? Do you need that today? You know, there's just certain times, there's certain seasons where you just need to put a stake in the ground, when you just need to declare, to just make a declaration that this is it. And I think this is one of those times. In fact, as I've been praying all week, I've been praying for all of those who are part of our church, all of those who are in our Miami church community. I've been praying for every single person that will hear my voice today or watch this. I've been praying for you, that you would come to this place where you could just have rock solid confidence that God is your anchor. And no matter what happens to you or your family, no matter what happens tomorrow or next week or next year, that you have rock solid confidence that God is your anchor, and He's going to hold. I want us just to be quiet for a minute. I know we're listening to this and watching this in all kinds of different environments, some that you can control, some that you can't. But if there's any way, I would love for you just to quiet your heart, to quiet your mind for a minute. If there's any way you could close your eyes or whatever you could do just to get quiet. See, we're in a storm right now. All of us. It means words that we put on the screen a few minutes ago. Overwhelmed and frustrated, numb, bored, hopeless. Right? These are words, these are emotions that we feel in the storm. There's so much uncertainty, there's so much unknown. I don't know, you don't know. Anyone that pretends to know, they don't know. And so I ask you, what are you holding on to? What are you clinging to? In the midst of all of this, in the midst of what you can't control and what you can't know, what are you holding on to? What is your anchor? What is securing your soul? Some of you today, you just need to make a declaration. You just need to declare, I'm going with God. I'm going with Jesus. In fact, Jesus told us, he said, listen, guys, there's going to be problems. He says, in this world, you will have problems. Even those of you who are followers of me, even those of you who are with me, hey, listen, you're going to have problems. It's going to be hard. But then he said, hey, be at peace because I'm with you. And so Jesus says, hey, listen, we're going to experience hard times. But hey, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. We have a hope, this anchor for our soul. And I just want to pray for you. If you're listening to this and watching this, and you know that you need an anchor. You've tried money, and you've tried fame, and you've tried relationships, and you've tried all of this career and all. You've tried all of that, and you know it's a lousy anchor. And you need an anchor in God. I just want to encourage you right now. I just want to close your eye. You tell God. Just talk to Him. Just, God, I just want to get this settled once and for all. Just talk to Him. Just say, God, I want you to be my anchor. God, all this stuff, these substitute anchors, they will not work. They will not hold. God, I want you to be my anchor. God, I want you to hold my life. God, I want to hold on to you. God, I want to declare my faith in you. God, I want to follow you. God, I want to commit to you. I want to declare. I want to be with you. I want you to be my anchor. If that's you right now, I would just encourage you. Right now, in the comments, there's a link. And you can click on the link. It's simple. There's no gotcha here or anything. This is just a simple link. And you just put your name in there and your email address. You see, because the first step to declaring, the first step in following Jesus is to be baptized. The first step is to go public, to declare and go, Jesus, I'm giving you my life, and I want you to be my life anchor, and I want to follow you as best as I can. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you have everything figured out. It doesn't mean you won't struggle again. None of that is true. It just is you. It's you taking that public step and declaring that I want Jesus to be my anchor, and I want to follow Him to the best of my ability with my life. And so I would invite you right now, click the link. It's simple. And we just want to follow up with you. We want to be able to answer your questions. We want to be able to put together an info meeting. We want to be able to connect with you and just talk with you and talk with you about this important thing. If Job could come up here, if Jeremiah could come up here, if the mom that wrote that book could come up here, they would plead with you and go, listen, I've been there. There's only one thing that can hold your life firm and secure. And that's a right relationship with God. And so click the link. We would be honored to come alongside of you and talk to you about what it means to follow Jesus, what it means to be baptized. Now, for those of you who are followers of Jesus, those of you who have come to a place where you've given your life to Jesus, where you have followed Him in baptism, maybe you're still feeling some of these things we threw on them. Maybe you're still feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you're still feeling just so uncertain and stressed and anxious in this time. And I just wanted to just remind us this morning that man, you have an anchor. You have an anchor for your soul, and maybe you just need to recommit. Maybe you need to refresh. Maybe you just need to confess that you tried to hold on to other anchors and just come back to center. Come back to truth. Come back and just go, God, I want to recommit back to you. I believe this shows us the genius of Jesus. And one of the things I love about our church is that when we gather together physically in this space, but also when we gather together online, we come back to this thing called communion. It's as if Jesus knew. He's like, listen, life's going to be hard. And you're going to get distracted, and you're going to get busy, and things are going to happen unexpectedly, and there's going to be global pandemics in 2020 that you don't know about yet, but it's coming. And he's going to, all of this stuff's going to happen, and you're going to feel twisted and torn and pulled, and you're going to feel emotions, and things are going to well up inside of you, and that's all natural and normal and human. But you got to like have a point where you can just come back to center and refocus. And so he said, I'm going to do this thing called communion. And it's going to get distorted and all goofed up because you guys are human. But the basic idea is when you gather together, I want to have a time where you can just recenter and refocus and remember and confess and come back to what really matters, that I'm the anchor for your life. And so I want to just lead us in this time of communion. Again, this is not a ritual. This is not a have to. It's not just a jump through a hoop thing. This is a holy moment, a special time where whatever we're feeling, whatever we're going through, those are legitimate feelings and emotions. But we have to come back into this like, hey, I made a declaration that I was going to follow Jesus. I made a declaration by being baptized, and I got to come back and hold on and cling to what is true. I got to cling to the one and only anchor that can really hold. So I'm going to invite you right now to grab your bread, whatever that is, and to grab your juice. And the simple idea Jesus said is, the bread represents my body, the juice represents my blood. I was broken for you, I was spilled out for you. And because of this, because of what I took all your guilt and all your shame and all your junk and all your mess and all your sin on me. And now you can be in a right relationship with God. And that right relationship with God gives you access to the anchor for your soul. And you can live with this peace that passes all understanding. And you can face life differently because I made a way for you to be in a right relationship with God. And so what we're going to simply do right now is I'm just going to encourage you. We're going to take the bread, which represents the body of Jesus, and dip it into the juice, which represents the blood of Jesus. And this is a time, wherever you are, slow down, reaffirm, refresh, recommit, confess. Like, go back to the anchor. Go back to the core, the anchor for your soul. So let's celebrate communion together. I don't want to rush this moment because I really believe there's some of us that need to do business today. That what we've experienced these past 9-10 weeks has rocked us. And I go back to the imagery of the boat, right? And the boat that's anchored, right? The boat shifts with the waves and the current. The boat can rock. But what happens? Right? If it's the right anchor, if the anchor is put in the right place, then right, the boat can rock, the boat can shift, the boat can move, but ultimately the boat will not come unattached. And friends, that's the imagery that the writer of Hebrews, he's saying, listen, right? There is an anchor for your life. And boy, there's going to be things, there's going to be pain, there's going to be agony, like there's going to be things that are unexplainable, there's going to be things that are hard, but guess what? You may get rocked back and forth, and you may get blown around by the wind and the current and the tide, and you may move around, but at the end of the day, that anchor, if it's in God, if it's in Jesus, it will not let go. It is firm and secure. So some of you need to do business with that. So again, I just encourage you right now, there's a team standing by. If we could pray with you, if you've got questions, hellomiamichurch.com. You can drop comments, direct message. You can hit that link. If you just want more information, please don't hesitate. Friends, I can't think of anything that is more important in your life than this. So I just encourage you. One of the things we've been doing as a church and is we've been challenging and encouraging you and all of us that are part of our church to read through the New Testament in 90 days. Now, the challenge with this kind of thing is a lot of us, especially those who grew up around a church, right? These things become like a hoop. Like, okay, well, let me get me a pen here and I can knock off. Let me just try to check these off. I did it. Wow. That's not the goal. The goal is that we want you to have an encounter with God. We believe, one of our core beliefs at Miami Church is that God is speaking to you, that God wants to talk to you, that God wants to be in this right relationship, this intimate, knowing relationship with you. And so the goal of getting into His Word is not to just read it. The goal is for God to speak to you. And so we've been doing this together. We're reading. And again, this is a way that in the midst of uncertainty that you just come back to the core truth. You come back to the anchor and you're reminded. And so that time of carving a time and a place every day, whether it's in the morning or the evening, you carve a time and place and you spend 15, 20, 30 minutes just reading. What does it do? It reminds you of the anchor. And so we're encouraging you to do this. Again, I would just encourage you, if you're behind, if you haven't started it, it's okay. Okay? The goal is not to read through this, in the same pace, or right. I'm actually a couple days behind because there's been a few days as I'm reading, I get to something and I have to just stop because it's like it comes off the page and just slaps me across the face, and I have to go, whoa. And so I encourage you, don't get discouraged. We're just doing this together, and we've got time. We're doing this through the summer. We're going to do this together, and so it's only May. We've got June, July. We've got time. I encourage you to do this. Again, we're here to help you. We're here to support you. In fact, one of the things we've created, we're calling Coffee and Bible, and it's on Saturdays at 8 on Zoom. It's really just an informal time. It's not a Bible study. It's not a sermon. One of our cool volunteer leaders, he simply just makes himself available to say, hey, if you just want to talk, if you just need encouragement, if you're struggling to understand something, if you have a question, he's just making himself available. And so Coffee and Bible is every Saturday at 8. If you want the link to that, you can email us at hello, or also direct message us, and we can get you the Zoom link to that. But it's every Saturday at 8 o'clock. He's going to be doing that every Saturday. So I would just encourage you there, Coffee and Bible. It's a really, really special time. Again, I want to shift here and just say thank you. Man, I'm blown away. I'm blown away at the faithfulness of our church. You guys continue to serve. We're trying to do as much as we can in the community to help those who are under-resourced. And you guys have continued just to give and to show generosity and to show empathy. And so I just want to say a big thank you to you guys. I just want to let you know, as the pastor, leader of this church, I am humbled and overwhelmed by just your faithfulness and your generosity. In fact, I would tell you that giving is up 42% right now over last year. And so those of you who continue just to give, and that doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense because we're in this time of so much economic uncertainty. And so I am humbled by that. And I just assure you that every dollar that's given is used to help the mission of helping people find and follow Jesus. And so if you're financially stable, and continue just to be generous, to give to our church. And those of you, again, we say this every week, those of you who are in need, if you'll let us know, we're trying to do everything we can to continue to serve and help those who are in need. I want to encourage those of you who are on all the different platforms, go ahead and like us, go ahead and follow us, hit the bell. Again, depending on what platform you're on, Facebook, YouTube, podcast, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and like. We don't want you to miss any of the things that are coming up. We're going to continue this conversation about this God that I wish you knew. You think this, but God is really like this. And so can I just pray for you, and then we'll close our time together this morning. God, I just want to thank you for every single man, woman, every single child, every single student that can hear my voice right now. God, I don't believe in fate or chance or luck. God, I believe that God, there is a divine appointment. And God, I pray for the person right now who has just never declared. They've just maybe been on the fence, or maybe they're curious, or maybe they're exploring. God, I pray for that person that's just never fully given their life to you and never followed you in baptism. God, I pray right now, God, that you would help them make that step of faith. God, we never have all the questions. We never the answers. We never don't have any questions. We never don't have any doubts, God. But you are drawing them to yourself. God, you're saying, come to me. All you who are weary and heavy burdened, and I'll give you rest for your soul. I'll be your life anchor. So God, give them the courage just to click on the link, just to take the step. God, to take the step toward you, to follow you, to make a declaration of you as their life anchor. God, I pray for so many of us, God, who are just in the midst of, we've been in this for weeks, God. We've been in this stay at home and uncertainty. It's been weeks. And God, it's wearing on us. And so, God, would you just use people and your word, and would you use this message, would you use different things, God, to remind us, God, that you are our anchor. And that no matter what happens tomorrow, no matter what's the headline this week in the paper, God, no matter what happens, God, you are the anchor for our soul. So, God, may we cling to you. May we cling to the anchor that is you. Not settle for a false anchor, a substitute anchor that will not hold. But God, may we cling to you. So God, we love you. We thank you for what you're doing here in our city, even things we don't know about, we don't see. God, may your blessing and favor continue to fall on our church. And God, may you use us, God, to spread hope. Hope, the thing we all need, the thing that comes from you. May you use us to spread hope to the amazing people who live right here in this area. God, we love you, and we pray this in the name of Jesus. And it's great to be together today. I love you guys, and I'm going to jump off here and try to get on some comments and try to say, hey. So if you're right now, would you just say, hey, Greg, to me? And I would love just to be able to say hey to you. I'm going to get to as many as I can in the next couple of minutes. All right, love you guys, and yes, let's keep going. Cling to the anchor that will hold no matter what. All right, love you guys.